Africa, the second largest continent in the world, with a total area of over 30 million square kilometers in 53 countries. The fast-growing youth population and the urbanization that is set to reach over 50% of Africans to cities by 2050 are driving forces to development, growth, and unprecedented opportunities. However, foreign investors have not moved into the continent as quickly as expected. We are a group of 4 Moroccan students majoring in management and trade at USMBA's business school, and we think investors are missing out.
In this video, we will try to make the case for why is investing in Sub-Saharan Africa a good idea, while in the same time giving you insights into the Sub-Saharan cultures, languages, and social costumes. Because in this case, culture matters more than you might think.
This is the African Renaissance, your cultural guide to invest in Sub-Saharan Africa.
Just 1 century ago, by the year 1913, 97% of the African continent was colonized by European powers. The global imperialism has affected this continent more than any other place on earth. The foreign political and economical dominance has its mark till today, even on the cultural life. But while dealing with Africa today, everyone should keep in mind that things have greatly changed since 1913. So let's make our first lesson be that Africans are proud people and it's their liberation that they are most proud of.
Continuing in this guide, we will talk about a key element in every business transaction: communication. It is the only way you can understand your market, your customers, your employees and partners. And of course, the medium here is language. In Africa, this scene is a bit tricky. It is the most linguistically diverse continent on Earth, according to the UNESCO. The number of languages spoken here vary between 1,000 and 2,500, depending on different estimates and definitions. However, Sub-Saharan Africa's language diversity has been dominated by colonial languages, mainly English and French, which are the official and working/business languages in most of African countries, thereby curtailing the use of indigenous languages in many professional settings. So you might think that only English and French could solve your problem, but we would argue that this is not a good and smart business idea to carry out. Typically, in most African countries, indigenous languages has been restricted to few domains of use, mainly the less formal ones, such as intra-community communication and interpretational rules in local courts, to name a few. But there are now more and more countries who have developed their indigenous languages to serve as national languages in all economic domains. There has been a revival of many of the dominant and most spoken indigenous languages in the continent, due to the fact that the majority of population in many nations speak mainly traditional languages. It is clear that the native languages play an essential role in development. Africans are making strides and valorizing multilingualism in all domains and are implementing the use of indigenous languages in business and formal settings. To illustrate what we are talking about, let's take the example of Tanzania, the country home to nearly 60 million people, 90% of whom speak Swahili. Following Tanzania's independence in 1964, children were expected to learn English in primary schools and then study Swahili in secondary school. However, the Tanzanian government discovered that Tanzanian children did not benefit from English lessons and could not carry out conversations in English. Teaching subjects in English actually led to lower academic performance, so the government decided to make Swahili the main language of instruction. In 2017, Tanzania became the first country in Sub-Saharan Africa to have an African language as the sole language of instruction in schools, replacing English. However, there are concerns that using Swahili might not be helpful in boosting Tanzania's economy as communicating in English would be. So, being able to speak English is still key in the moment. Yet, universities all around the world have introduced Swahili as a language of study, and South Africa is now bringing the language to its schools. Swahili is gaining in prominence and will be able to flourish as a common language with the expansion of the publishing, education and translation sectors. This hopeful trend seems to get replicated in other places too. In Senegal, the use of Wolof is widespread in business environments. Wolof is spoken by more than 80% of Senegalese and as such is a common language for everyday business negotiations. In Nigeria, the majority of business transactions that happen in the country are being conducted in Igbo, Yoruba, and Hausa, the three major languages that are widely spoken nationally in addition to English. In Ghana, about 60% of people communicate daily in Akantwi, which has been classified as one of 9 government-sponsored languages. It is a dominant language that is commonly used in many settings, especially in business. And many languages are spoken in more than just one country, like Yoruba, that is spoken in Togo and Benin, additionally to Nigeria, and Oromo, that is spoken particularly in Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, and even Egypt. So, as African local languages are competing with colonial ones, recent events demonstrate that a number of innovative initiatives are underway to promote the use of many lesser-known languages throughout Africa. As a recent example, the Pan-South Africa Language Board has started working on the production of a Siswati language dictionary. Experts say the projects will give much-needed assistance to teachers of the language. Meanwhile, in Kenya, new television stations are starting more and more to broadcast to local communities in indigenous languages. Another innovative effort was recently announced in South Africa, the translation and creation of business software into many of the country's native languages. A software foundation is hiring specialists to translate Linux and other desktop applications to the 11 languages spoken in the country.
This new reality imposed by the authenticity, diversity, and optimism of the Sub-Saharan African youth is to consider and take seriously by any foreign businessman. In our part, we would advise you to make sure you release information about your product in the languages spoken in the country you're targeting. The American research firm Common Sense Advisory had once found that 72.4% of all customers are more willing to buy a product if information about it is in their own language. Don't forget that only 5% of the people across the globe speak English as their official language. And even if it is, this doesn't mean translation is useless. Take South Africa, for example. English is one of the many official languages in the country, but it is the first language of only 8.2% of its inhabitants. Furthermore, colonial languages are often regarded by Africans as tools of control by local elites. There are a few checks you should do before you start your localization process. In short, find out how you deal with support calls in the local language. Think about the customers you deal with. English will probably be enough if you deal with businesses, but not really with individual agents. Make long-term plans, as growth can mean you need more language experts than you previously thought. Think of incorporating some strategic language management.
While languages is an important part of the equation, it's not the only part. General cultural understanding is essential here. The importance of cultural factors has been increasingly emphasized in the foreign direct investment literature. In particular, the impact of cultural distance between home and host countries has been found to be significant in a number of studies investigating the role of culture in explaining foreign direct investment flows. Sub-Saharan Africa's development does not require a transfer of cultural methods and techniques from the industrialized Western countries. Extensive studies and research seem to suggest that Western values are not always consistent with traditional incentives and behavioral patterns prevalent in most African countries. Self-reliance and self-interest tend to take a backseat to ethnicity and group loyalty. There are still thousands of ethnic groups on the continent. The main concern seems to be maintaining social balance and equity within the groups. Rather than individual economic achievement, generally the interest of the local and ethnic communities takes precedence over whatever the government may declare as national goals. Sub-Saharan African culture is characterized by a long, drawn-out negotiation process for all contracts, so sales targets are likely to be dissimilar to those from countries with a linear view of time. And because of the importance of respect, messages should focus on individuals' need for belonging rather than on the individualism striving for achievement. Sub-Saharan Africa is also a hierarchical area. This means that people accept a hierarchical order in which everybody has a place and which needs no further justification. Employees often prefer their boss to be autocratic and very hands-on. There is considerable dependence between a boss and his or her subordinates, but there is little social interaction between them. Let's not forget also that communities in this region area are considered collectivistic. They foster strong relationships where everyone takes responsibility for fellow members of the group. Employer or employee relationships are perceived in moral terms like a family link. Hiring and promotion decisions takes account of the employers in group, and management is the management of groups. On another note, Sub-Saharan Africans have a relatively high tendency to avoid uncertainty. So they maintain ordered codes of belief and behavior and are intolerant of unorthodox acts and ideas. In this culture, there is an emotional need for roles even if the roles never seem to work. So innovation might be resisted and security is an important element in individual motivation. Besides, this culture does not exhibit long-term orientation. People there have great respect for traditions, a relatively small propensity to save for the future and the focus on achievement quick results. It's also an indulgent area. People generally display a willingness to fulfill their impulses and desires, especially with regard to enjoying life and having fun. They possess a positive attitude and have a tendency towards optimism. In addition, they place a higher degree of importance on leisure time, act as they please, and spend money as they wish.
This is Africa, the region full of promises and untapped riches and natural resources, from oil, minerals, and uncultivated land to talented people and human capital. In 2012, 7 out of 10 people on the continent were under the age of 30, and a significant portion of the population is anticipated to enter the middle classes, which leads to growth of demand in the domestic markets. The youth seek to access a wider choice of foods, consumer goods, entertainment, and increased connectivity. As management students, we encourage you to come. The high levels of ethnic, linguistic, and religious diversity might seem intimidating at the first sight, but this is not an obstacle. In fact, more culturally diverse societies are more tolerable and less reluctant towards foreigners. Finally, if you want to come eventually but you don't know how and where to start, let us give you a secret. Come to Morocco, not just because it is our country, but because we have all the field experience, financial expertise, and logistical advantages capable of boosting your investment journey in Africa. Keep open, be strategic, and come to Africa.